Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Practical Inclusion on what is a dreary, rainy day down here on Wadawurrung country. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land that I broadcast to you from today and pay my respects to their elders past and present, and any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders who happen to be listening in today. Ruth, my guest, I think the weather's probably a little bit better where you're from. Are you able to acknowledge country where you're from today?
Yeah, no, I would love to acknowledge the Kondamuka people of the Redlands where I'm calling from today, and acknowledge their traditional custodians and their elders past and present, and also acknowledge any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening with us today. It is a beautiful sunny day in the Redlands today, and it's actually really cold, but it's sunny and lovely, so I can't complain.
Beautiful. I'm glad it is. So for anyone watching in, as usual, love to hear your comments, thoughts, questions in the chat, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube. Really loved the conversations that went on from last week's episode with Gloria. If you did miss that I believe was one of the best of this series so far. And so please jump on and watch Gloria's episode, because she really said some incredible things, and there was a lot of learning in that particular episode. And we're going to have some fun today, because today I get to talk about STEM and diversity in STEM, which is obviously very close to my heart. And I'm going to let you, Ruth, introduce yourself like I do with each guest. If you could tell us a little bit about your story, why you're doing what you're doing, but also, how did you get here? How did you get into this space, in the inclusion space? Because always people are commenting on how much they love hearing the stories of how people came to inclusion work.
Oh, thanks, Bree. I appreciate the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Ruth. You might know me as Rocketwoman. My name seems to precede me to a lot of places these days, which is great, but also a little bit intimidating. I do suffer from quite a lot of imposter syndrome in this space. My story is probably, I would like to say it's different, but I think having done a lot more research into the journeys of people, particularly women in STEM and diverse people in STEM, it's not unusual. I am passionate about STEM. I love planes and trains and boats and all of those sorts of things. I love technology. And I went to uni as the path was in the UK in the 80s. I'm an 80s child, so I've realised in more recent times that I was a child of a lot of privilege. In the 80s, it was a very affluent time. But anyhow, I ended up as an air cadet. So I won a scholarship to go and learn how to fly. I ended up doing an engineering degree in aerospace engineering. And when I finished that degree, unfortunately, there was a massive downturn within the aerospace industry within the UK, and I couldn't get on a graduate placement. I couldn't get one anywhere within the country. It was, I even remember I applied to a company that made glass. That's how things are so far out of, aerospace engineering. And so I ended up doing lots of different things. I worked in a bank. I worked in a place where they chopped vegetables for hotels, and then I ended up moving to Australia and ended up into engineering recruitment. And I did that for quite a lot of years, and over the years I always got asked, where are all the female engineers, where are the women, where are the diverse candidates? And for me, I always felt that I was I wasn't even aware of bias when I was, there, but I was always fairly, open to lots of people. And I always tried to find, more diverse people, but I didn't know the skills then of how to do that. And I didn't understand the challenges of what was the systematic challenges that we're facing in that system. And so I got really, really frustrated. So I decided that I was going to start doing my own research. I started to realize that my own journey had been challenged by that system, and I hadn't ended up where I should have done or where I felt I should have done. And I didn't want that to happen for anybody else. I really didn't want that. I didn't want people who have goals and dreams and, you know, really great skills to end up in not where they wanted to be because of a system that wouldn't let them do the things that they wanted to do. So in short, that's how I've ended up here, is that I have just become so passionate about helping people achieve what they want to achieve. And I'm very, very keen to see us have more diversity in ideas, particularly around engineering, around things that are designed for people, and making, you know, stop designing them for one set of people and having, you know, bias in computer software even, you know. And it's so important that we actually get those new ideas and new thought processes from people who have got lived experience or have a different viewpoint or have a different cultural experience. So for me, that's where I am today.
Yeah, and it is so fascinating how there are, even though all the stories for the guests that come on this show are really quite different, there's always that, well, not always, but quite often there's that moment where, hang on, I realised that I didn't get the opportunities that I perhaps should have got. And what can I do to prevent that from being somebody else's experience? So it's certainly an underlying motivator, isn't it?
Oh, it definitely is. And I think one of the things that I have realised is that I am somebody who has a significant amount of privilege. And so what is it like for people who have less privilege than I do? And that's not right. You know, if I've struggled with certain aspects of my career or my life or what have you, how has that affected other people? And why are those people being judged or being dismissed because of a life experience that's basically based on a system that doesn't work?
Yeah, good call. I want to hear a little bit about what you're doing now about it, because I'm really fascinated by the approach that you're taking. So can you explain that to us?
Yeah, definitely. So my goal is to help women and diverse people who have had that drive to be in a STEM career and have moved away for whatever reason or have never achieved it because they didn't feel it was for them, to give them that opportunity to re-enter or go into that place. Because for me, one of the biggest drivers for me is one that I feel that there's people like me who have got so much passion for an industry, but they don't know how to get into it, because it can be quite a close shop. You know, if you're not who you're supposed, you don't know the right people, or you've not got exactly the right qualification, or you've not, if you've got 10 years worth of experience that's missing, that can be really hard to come back from. But I also feel that people who have had some kind of career have huge amounts of experience in other areas that are so relevant to STEM careers. Whether it's understanding, the technology that we need, or whether it's, why do we do things the way we've done them? And, those questions don't get asked if you're inside that system all the time. Something that really upsets me is something called aggressive furniture. That's not the word I'm looking for, but basically aggressive architecture. And it's things that are placed in a city to stop people sleeping rough on them. And for me, that's like, what world have we become where we are getting people to design things specifically so that they're not usable? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I think that we need new ideas and new thoughts, and someone going, is that the right thing to do? Because I don't think there's enough of that in STEM at the moment, because we don't have that. We have a bit of tunnel vision because we've always used the same cultural types of people.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so keen to get new ideas and new experiences in.
One of the things that people quite often raise when you talk about increasing the diversity in STEM is that time will just correct this. That, back in the 80s, no, women weren't encouraged to move into the sciences or into STEM more broadly. And so it's just going to take a bit of time now that women are studying, and people from other diverse backgrounds are in studying the sciences, that things will naturally change. The way will change. We don't need affirmative action. What's your response to that?
My response to that is that how can things change when the system is set up specifically to not allow things to change? And so there's so many things. It's such a complex situation that you can't allow for change to happen slowly, because it will take far too long. And there will be so many people who will miss out on opportunities that it just won't work. It hasn't worked so far. I'm trying to put it politely, but at the end of the day, it hasn't worked, and it's not going to. We need to change the system to make everybody. So for me, we've got diversity and inclusion, and we talk about equality. For me, it's never been about equality; it's about equity. And the difference is that equality is making everybody equal, and not understanding that everybody isn't equal and giving everybody the same tools. Whereas equity is about actually bringing everyone up to the same level, regardless of where they started from, and so supporting the people that need more support. And there's so many different areas of, I think, it's something that's only just starting to become mainstream, is this intersectionality. We want to really put people into pigeonholes. I'm diverse because I'm a woman, but actually, I'm a fairly privileged white woman. I have nothing else really to hold me back. Then you start adding, whether you're a person of color, or you're an Indigenous or Torres Strait Islander, or whether you are of a different cultural set, or you're a migrant. All of these things start to rack up, and we want to put people in pigeonholes and go, okay, well, we've solved our quota here for here and here. And it's really about understanding the intersectionality of those challenges, and we're not going to do that by just going, yeah, it'll change eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that idea that, well, everybody's well-intentioned, we're all good people, if you deserve the role, you'll get the role. And as you say there, that's clearly not the case. In your LinkedIn profile, you talk about a topic that I am very keen to talk about too, which is this concept of merit. And I absolutely love talking about merit, because it is something that people hold on so tightly to, this idea that we employ people based on merit. I employ the best person for the job. How do you respond when people provide that kind of justification to you?
The problem with merit is in the eye of the beholder. That's my biggest problem with merit, is that, one, it's a made-up term, because no one can actually define what meritocracy is. But also, if you go down the road of, this is what's important to me, well, that's the whole point. That's what's important to you. And, something I didn't realize up until recently, and because I naively thought it wasn't a problem anymore, was when people go, oh, well, what university did you go to? You didn't go to the right university. I'm like, well, why? What's meritocratic about that? Being at the right, you made the right friends? Is that why? You know what I mean? It's like, if you've got a qualification in this, and you've been
It seems like,
yeah,
we got you back. We just lost you for a little bit, or either we lost you or you lost me. I'm not sure.
Yeah. So, for me, merit is so much about, that person putting their thoughts out there, and they're never, it's a ridiculous concept. And I don't know if you've seen the latest show, Misrepresentation, on the ABC. I binge watched it last night, and looking at that, and just watch that if you've got questions about merit, really.
Right.
They talk about, have you ever
on my list?
Yeah, do watch it. They talk about, have you ever seen a politician's resume? No, you haven't, have you? No. If merit's really important, it's yeah. So I'm all about potential. I'm all about, if we went with the people that were really passionate and keen, and gave them the opportunity to show that, and we would have so many brilliant people, doing some really amazing things, rather than focusing on, which university did you go to?
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. And I love that you've highlighted potential as being something that we need to put so much more focus on than what we currently do. And even when we come up across organisations that are doing a lot of great stuff in the diversity and inclusion space, so they may have spent a lot of time, reducing the amount of bias that we can weave its way into their recruitment processes, and they've got strong values and strong strategies and affirmative action around diversity and inclusion. I still find at the end, when it comes to making their recruitment decisions, they're still basing that on years of experience. That's something that I don't think we've managed to shift anywhere near enough. Even when we think about achievement relative to opportunity, which some viewers may not be familiar with, but it's this idea that you will assess someone based on the opportunities that they've had and the achievements they've made within the opportunities they've had, not where they should have been if you were to compare them against somebody who had perhaps had more opportunity. But even when we make those decisions, we still find ourselves talking about years of experience or actual outcomes that have already been produced. And I get that this is a really hard concept to get our heads around and to move past what we've always done in this space. But if we don't start looking at potential, we can't shift the inequities that currently exist. It's actually not possible.
I think there's a great line from I think it's the superannuation industry, past performance cannot be a reliable indicator of future, performance. And I think that should be, written on the bottom of everybody's resume. Warning here, just because you've got 15 years of experience in this does not mean that you're going to be the best person for this role. And what opportunity have you had to develop yourself? And the other thing that that really, someone coming from the recruitment industry, and I think it's getting better but it's still there, is that somebody who moves around is seen as less it's a negative thing against somebody who's been at the same company for a long time. And I'm like, well, so for me, what I've learned the most from is moving around, is doing different things in different organizations, seeing how other things work, and I think it should be seen as a good thing, not always, it's not a negative thing. And it's these little stigmas that you just pick up that really start to sort of affect your brain and how you think about somebody. So, what's that gap there? Or, and we're like, what? You absolutely know nothing about them other than what's black and white on this piece of paper, and you're making a huge judgment on them. Yeah. So, and I saw something recently, in fact, in the last couple of weeks, I was reading something about a company that's done away with resumes, and they just do a video interview and ask them some certain questions, and that's it. And they interview and I was like, they make you send in a video or something, or you answer the questions. And I was reading it going, this is fantastic. We so need to do away with the resume, because it's so much full of both bias, and then you think about the machine learning that goes on behind the scenes, and and all of those things that are another way to it's like, just get rid of it. Just actually resource your recruitment teams properly so that they can get the right impact and get the right people.
Absolutely couldn't agree more. In a project I just did recently where I was reviewing a recruitment process for an organisation, that was quite clear that that's where the research is at, that CVs are not a predictor of performance in any way, shape or form, and yet we're still so much reliant upon that CV. And I can see Nicole's given us a great comment there. Merit, potential guest on this discussion. Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, you certainly.
On that aspect of we're talking about merit and bias and things, and we're talking. I recently was talking to a person, and they have an assistance dog, and they're struggling to find work, and it's because of the assistance dog. And you're just like, are we still in this world where people cannot see past this thing that they're not used to? Whether it's somebody who has a disability or a different way of thinking, or isn't just that normal, not normal, that's the wrong word, but the what's the word I'm looking for, Bree? The
status quo.
The status quo, yeah, when they don't fit into that expectation, people don't want to think outside the box. They don't want to go, how can we make this work? This person's fantastic. How can we actually make it work for them? And that really frustrates me.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, from having sat on the other side too, being a manager who's hiring people and you're under stress and you're under pressure, you're looking for the person that's going to make things as easy as possible for you. And unfortunately, we sometimes grab to that short-term win in that this person, how many times do you hear somebody say they're going to hit the ground running? I really need somebody to hit the ground running. Yeah, sure. Well, maybe they will, but they'll do it exactly the way you did it. And in the long term, they're not going to produce the benefits that somebody who thinks differently to you and brings a different perspective into the workplace is going to actually bring and achieve for you. It might be short-term pain, but long-term gain. And we've got to try and get more of our hiring managers and recruiters looking beyond that initial week or two that a person starts.
I think one of the this job tunnel blindness that people find when they're doing recruitment is that they see the person in the role and forget about how they got there. They just see where they are right now, and therefore they expect to get a carbon copy of the person that's there right now, rather than going, well, actually this person started here and then they went here and then they went here and then they actually brought all that knowledge into this role right now, but we're expecting to get exactly the same. You're like, wait a minute, you're not going to find that person because basically that is the only person who has got that experience. But you're making it so difficult for yourself. You could, if you look back where they came from and go, okay, well, if we accept this person, this level of person or into this role and give them some coaching or, look at potential, we're actually going to find somebody who could bring something different and not just the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love this conversation. We've got a bit of time left, and I did want to talk about the other thing that you mentioned a little bit earlier on, that you're doing around looking at candidates that perhaps aren't graduates or trainees to try and bring diversity into STEM workforces, that may be looking at people later in their career stages that might either come back to STEM or come to STEM for the first time. Can you explain a little bit about why you're taking that approach and how it's panning out?
So my goal with the Rocketwoman program is to provide a mature age internship, a returnship, whatever you want to call it, to give people who have been out of either the workforce or the STEM workforce, so they might have left to go into a different industry, or they might have just had significant time away, to give them an opportunity to go and work, get paid work, and get their skills back up to, so that they can then either go on and stay employed with that host employer, or go and they've got some relevant recent work experience that they can go to another organization. Why I've gone down that road is because partly it's a personal thing. I'm getting older and I'm hugely aware of how much ageism there is, particularly for women. If you think about how long you've got in your career, and when somebody says, oh well, most women sort of by 55, you kind of, that's it, you're done. I'm like, that's not very, unless you're you're solid in a career, and that you're in your mid 30s, 40s, it's quite difficult. So part of me is personally driving that. Another part of me is I'm sick of seeing these reports of women over 55 who are the highest, fastest growing cohort of homeless people, and single parents who have to do 3 or 4 different jobs, and they can't get a career because there's no flexibility, or and they're struggling because they don't have a well-paying job. They've got to manage with whatever they can find. And we as an industry is screaming out for engineers and STEM professionals and people who have great skills and great passion, and go, well, why are we not looking at these people? Why are we not supporting them back into the workforce? So for me, it's a different talent pool. We can't keep pushing the same people around and around. And so we need to look somewhere else. And it's a social reason. We need to be providing better jobs for people. We need to support people into these roles. And it's not going to happen by itself. It's not going to happen. So we need to have a program for it. So apart from the fact that we need different ideas within STEM and different life experience, and we need different people who have had different life experiences and have some confidence to share them and go, no, that's not going to work. We need to think about it differently. And so through that program, what I hope is not only to get people into jobs, but also to help change the cultures inside some of these businesses.
Beautiful. I really love the concept, and I know doing some research for a project earlier in the year, I noticed that in the construction industry they had found that they'd had a lot of success bringing women into the industry in later stages of their working lives, and that was, whereas the focus had traditionally been on trainees and graduates and school leavers. So I think there's, an untapped, we don't have enough research on this. I think this is a great thing that you're doing in terms of looking towards different markets, as you say, because we know the organisations that are wanting to increase the diversity, the next question is, well, we can't get anyone. And so I love that you're providing a different way in a different space for organisations to source candidates. So I'd say jump on board if you're listening in and trying to increase the diversity of your STEM workforces. I think there's definitely merit in this program. Thank you so much for coming on today, Ruth, and having a conversation. I knew I'd enjoy this because it takes me back to STEM and sciences.
We can talk about
recruitment. I love these topics, and I love what you've brought to the conversation and some cool takeaways there for people as well. And I loved you and I spoke about the fact that when we often talk about diversity and inclusion, people think that it is that if we're going to talk about diversity and inclusion, then we're talking politics. And the reality is, as you've described through some of the stories that you've told today, it's not about politics at all. It's about people, and it's about business and how we make meaningful careers for a diverse range of people, but also we allow businesses to benefit from that diverse talent and the diverse ideas that come through. So really, thank you for taking us on that journey with some of those stories you've told us today.
No, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And we've had lots of comments on Facebook, which is good for a change. We don't usually get many comments from the Facebook page. So
yay, Facebook.
Thank you everyone again for listening in this week. I am also going to take a little bit of time yet again to plug the Diversity and Inclusion Network. We did have our second session last Thursday, and it was such a great conversation, and I really enjoyed unpicking some of the challenges that some of the diversity inclusion committee members and diversity inclusion professionals were having, and we really unpicked them as a group and had a good dance at the start as well. So if you want to check out more about that, head to my website, breegorman.com.au. And if you type in /diversity-inclusion, you'll find a webpage about the network. Thanks, Ruth. And obviously, I'll be back again next week with another topic. Thoughts go out to all of those who are in lockdown in a variety of states now in Australia. Hopefully, it won't drag on forever. And I'll see who I can next week. Thanks, Ruth.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.